Call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Are there any guests to speak? Seeing none, we're going to move on. I'm going to take the order that's on the agenda, and I'm going to take it out of order. I'm hoping someone else will show up for Brooks Academy, but since Amy, well, geez, he's here. All right. You had the opportunity, sorry, Amy. All right, we're going to continue the discussion on Brooks Academy, the rehabilitation and storage historic documents, and the request amount is $130,000. Would anybody, does anybody want to lead the discussion?
I'll just open.
Board members? Mary?
I'll open if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, and just let you know that the historic, Mr. Spitz met with the Historic Commission last night to go over the Brooks Academy Museum report, the kind of overall report, and the HCHC did take a vote unanimously 5-0 to support the use of CPC funds to perform the work detailed in the report for Brooks Academy. And noted that the structure is one of the two cornerstones of our historic district. So we just submitted a letter to the commission
Great, I have it.
tonight.
Discussion, anybody else? John?
So I read, there were a couple of emails that went around, right? And looking at those, and Dave Spitz had a conversation with
Sean Libby.
Sean Libby, and Sean seems to be very focused on addressing the structural issues before doing anything else. And it looked to me like there was an agreement between Dave and Sean to hold off on the basement work and address the structural stuff first. And if I don't have that right, somebody should correct me, but my thought is that we could move forward to approve the amount requested, but specify in a specific priority how the funds are to be spent, going along with what is the content of the emails. And we can't specify specific amounts to be spent on anything, but we can specify priorities.
Would it be appropriate to read the,
Let's have a discussion
okay,
first.
okay,
Let's-
because that
let's-
kind of listed.
Right. Let's discuss it out.
Okay.
So, David, do you want to have a chance to respond to?
Well, I don't know if it was in time or not. I sent an email this afternoon, maybe this week. And in that, I suggested, did anyone receive that?
Yes.
No, they all did.
We have, the response.
I'm not talking about the one between me and Sean.
Oh,
Right,
No.
yes, there
Another
was
one?
another one, right?
I didn't,
this one?
Kathy sent something this morning, which was a forward from,
Yeah, yes, they did.
okay.
All right, so I'm suggesting that in response to, I'm sorry, I know the older members, I don't remember.
John,
John.
John. In
Older?
response To John's longer
is that well again?
standing on the committee.
Mr. Spitz.
No, wait a minute, before I
Let's not get confused here.
What I've suggested as an amended position would allow us to do just that. By proceeding to the designs, the specific design stage for this project. That includes the basement, the elevator, and the relocation of the entrance. That the first component of that design work would be the structural analysis. So that's what I'm proposing.
Okay. John,
Go ahead.
I'd like to propose specific language.
okay,
Just not for the whole thing, but
Right.
just specifically addressing the issue of the order in which funds are to be spent. Because
and that's
just to have something specific to talk about, and which is
Would you be willing to hold that off for
Sure,
one, just to
absolutely.
hear out the rest of the
Absolutely.
board? Kathy, please.
Okay, so after receiving David's emails, I went back to the abbreviated report that you had given us. And, in one of the email conversations, it says that the water-related damage should be the highest priority, before anything else. And that also included peeling paint and, that kind of thing. And I remember reading in Sean's message that he was concerned about, the exterior in terms of the lead paint removal and that kind of thing. And that's sort of like, kind of branching out into another whole area. My biggest concern is the elevator issue, though, because, we really haven't talked about the elevator. And my understanding is that if we went ahead, let's say the structural analysis is done, and you have a clear path forward, you implied that the elevator work, it would be best if it was done in the same time frame as the basement was done, in terms of,
That's what I've suggested in my revised request. I
okay.
may not have made it clear enough. The combination of the basement, the elevator, and the relocated entrance came in at just under $500,000. The design, based on 20% of that cost, based on the numbers in the report for the design work associated with that, I would come to about $60,000. I put in $70,000 to cover anything that might be additional for the structural engineer. So by allowing us to go forward with the recommendations of this report that include the water issues, that includes the 3 major improvements I've just been talking about, and that is understood that the structural analysis is specifically called out, because we can't go forward unless that proves to be possible. I'm sorry, just let
Go ahead, David.
This is based on the architect's advice, is that the structural issues can be fully addressed during the design phase. So that's what I'm asking for. So we proceed with that.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, quick question. Where is the director's office gonna go? Since the proposal was that the director's office now is on the second floor in Exhibit Room 2, I think, or something, and the space is gonna be on the first floor. It's gonna be taken over.
This is one of the details that would be fleshed out during the design phase. Right now, we are proposing to back off a couple of expensive things that were in the report. One of which was to excavate the entire footprint. The second of which was to do a number of interior wall changes, including the one you just talked about. And those drove the cost up to $1.5 million. We are now saying we are not proceeding with most of those interior wall changes. So that probably means the director's office is staying right where it is. What we
Okay.
are doing is completely redoing the basement, redoing the entrance to get the elevator in, and whichever door, we end up using it on the north side.
Okay, so is excavation work part of the basement?
No,
Okay,
no longer. That was the $1.5 million price tag that we backed off.
okay. So there's no new existing space gonna be created?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm done right now.
Chris?
So I just want to be clear, David. It sounds like you're saying that the structural engineering analysis is estimated to cost $70,000.
The design work is estimated to cost $70,000, and that would include the structure.
Design of the 3 components
Yes.
you've described.
Yes.
So if the,
I'm sorry for jumping back in. If you look at the matrix of costs, I went to the design line near the bottom of it, across the entire column, and that's how it's planned.
and so if the $130,000 funding was approved, you'd have $60,000 left to begin work against the 3 objectives.
Yes.
And do you have any idea how much of the cost of those three objectives would be covered by $60,000?
To allow this to go forward, what is imperative is to proceed to the next phase of design. That's what I'm estimating 70,000. And sometimes I shoot myself in the foot, but if you approve nothing more than that, I feel that this project will move forward significantly. Because of the cycle of CPC projects where you don't get anything until the following July 1st, I said, okay, I originally submitted 130, so let's try to go for that again. So we might be able to do the lead paint work first. We might be able to, no, I'm gonna back off that comment. I'm not sure which items might be first, I really don't know.
It didn't sound like from Sean's comments that he felt that the lead paint work was, doing the lead paint work first was the right way to go.
Right.
He didn't feel it was.
He wants the entire project to be designed. He feels we'll get economies of scale.
Okay.
But he doesn't want anything to happen until we've answered the structural analysis. And I'm suggesting to you folks that that can be done as part of the design phase. And whatever conditions you want to place on that to make sure that nothing else happens until that, that's fine with me.
Well, just as a point of clarification, if the 130 is approved and the analysis in fact does cost $70,000, do we need very specific detail for the remaining $60,000, or is this general sort of description that David has given acceptable?
That's what we're gonna decide.
Okay.
Randy?
I'd be in favor of the $70,000 for the structural, but I don't think you should give them carte blanche with the balance of the money when we have no idea what the costs will be or how that money would be, extra money would be applied. So I would be in favor of 70, but not 130.
Yeah, David, on the 70, that includes the structural engineering report as well as the design and specification of all the different phases,
It
correct?
brings it ready to, to
But
a
what-
point ready to be bid.
Right, but what I'm concerned about is if it does go in and we find that there's tremendous water damage, particularly on that east side, and that the structure, they say, oh, no, you gotta rebuild this corner of the wall, you know, the foundation, then wouldn't we want to have some extra money to allocate for that so that we get that done before next year's?
Yes.
So, I mean, if we have the 70, it would be good to have a buffer
It would.
to have so that we can actually affect repairs immediately, so we don't go another 18 months without, particularly that east side, looking at that damage, it's a lot worse than I thought. There is definitely something going on there.
John?
So, my concern about what you're discussing right now is that it doesn't, unless I heard you wrong, it doesn't involve addressing explicitly any of the structural problems, and there are several listed in the report, including leaking basement, including, the unknown structural repairs that might or might not have to be done to the basement, aside from apparently it's leaking already, the gutters and downspouts, windows and doors, which there's apparently a lot of rot in, and other unspecified water damage, which I haven't looked at the building myself, so I don't know exactly what it is. But I wouldn't be in favor of allocating the total $130,000 carte blanche, or with the understanding that anything beyond what is required for the engineering assessment and architectural work, that it go somehow to address the basement and the elevator, because there are so many other structural problems that need to be addressed first. And I would very much prefer either what Randy is suggesting, just allocate the $70,000 and specify that it's for design and engineering work, or very explicitly, one way or another, specifying that the balance of the $130,000 is going to be used to address structural issues. Because I don't see that it makes any sense to start making modifications to the building when there's still water damage problems and all kinds of other problems.
David?
Okay, the way I worded this latest email, to proceed with final design for the improvements, improvements to include basement renovations, the installation of the elevator, the relocation of the public entrance, and other building restoration items described in the report, which includes the ones that you said, maybe not in as much detail. However, it then says final design would specifically include a structural engineering analysis of the building foundation and review of condensation issues that may be affecting building siding on the east exterior wall. If you want to further add the one other item of getting water away from the building in better fashion, you could do that. But we are proposing that a $70,000 design study will include all of these things. That's what I'm trying to do to meet what I've heard the concerns of this committee. Now, the only thing that I've heard tonight that gives me a little pause is, yes, it is, I've said a little while ago, I feel we need the money for the study. Whether I get some of the additional money to get the work done in the upcoming fiscal year would be nice, but is not essential. What is essential, Bob, is, as you questioned, is to have enough money to do the study. I'm not a professional estimator. Based on what I've seen in the report, I believe $70,000 will get the work done, but it may or may not be enough. You never know at this point in time.
Kathy?
Well, we just paid $30,000 to an architectural firm to do basically a needs assessment. And now we want to spend $70,000 to do a structural engineering assessment and design work, is understanding. So is there any crossover in those two? I mean, is there any?
If we had done it all at once, maybe it wouldn't have cost us $100,000. It might have cost $85,000, possibly.
Okay. So there's nothing that a engineering firm will take from the architectural report and not have to, retrace their steps,
We
so to
didn't
speak?
know what work we wanted done before we did this $30,000 study. Now we have a pretty good blueprint.
Okay.
Chris?
Hey, David, sorry if this has come up before and I missed it or forgot it, but what is the annual visitor traffic to Brooks?
I have to check, I don't know.
Anybody, Bob, do you know?
I don't know.
Mary, anybody know?
I do not,
Nobody knows, okay.
but it is,
Go ahead, Mary.
Mr. Chair, it is a town building.
Yep.
So it is a town-owned building, and, I mean, from my perspective, that's one of the reasons I'd like to see historic preservation funds go towards it before it gets worse.
Right, sure. Would be interesting to know what kind of visitor traffic it gets, though.
John?
Just another question. I think I missed your early on description of where that $70,000 number came from. It's just a waiting on the, I mean, it isn't from any proposal from anybody, it's not, it's
It's a
just
guesstimate.
kind of a,
Yes.
The,
Big
in the cost estimate on page 104, hope that's included in what I've given you. The entirety of the three projects in the left-hand column is $451,000. 3 lines up from that, there's the design contingency site work, which I had understood to be a design cost, which is $57,000. A number of questions have been raised here about the structural engineering, so I took that $57,000 and on my own upped it to $70,000 to include anything that might come up like that.
My questions continue with the assessment of the basement. And we have a mechanism to address that apparently. Has the town signed the lease yet? Or is that still under negotiation?
There's an agreement that was done in 2007 for 10 years. That means it was up in 2017. That's an agreement between the town and the Harwich Historical Society. My role is the chair of the town committee, which is the Brooks Academy Museum Commission. Janet Cassidy, the part-time director of the museum, who's hired by the Historical Society, and I met with Bob Lawton, the acting assistant town administrator, this week to go over the details of that agreement.
Okay, so is there a time period that that'll be finalized?
I expect that to be finalized within a month and a half.
Okay, before town meeting?
Yes.
All right. David, I found one typo on the application, and
Knock us out.
this one's pretty, do you have a moment? Can you come forward? So at some point in time, that will have to be amended to that? Otherwise, this is all for naught. Just so you're aware of it. Mary,
Yes.
would you like to read what you've developed?
So I have a proposed motion to approve $130,000 from the FY18 Community Preservation Historic Preservation account for the Brooks Academy Museum Commission to fund work proposed at Brooks Academy Museum Building in accordance with the Brooks Academy Museum report dated December 5th, 2018, further defined as the report, with the caveat that the monies must first be used to fund a structural engineering study regarding the foundation of the building. Second, be used to make said foundation structurally sound. And third, be used to restore and preserve the outer shell of the building and/or protect the building from further damage due to water and dampness in accordance with the recommendations of the report. So I don't know if that is a motion that someone is willing to second, and if so, perhaps we could then hear
Have a
from.
discussion. Anybody willing to second that motion?
Well, first I'd like to ask you to read it again.
Sure. So it's in general or in total?
In total.
It's
Well,
to approve 130, okay.
It's a
I wanna hear
motion,
the
so it'd be read
caveats
in total.
again, is
It's a-
basically what I'm after.
So it's a motion to approve $130,000 from the FY18 Community Preservation Historic Preservation account for the Brooks Academy Museum Commission to fund work proposed at the Brooks Academy Museum Building in accordance with the museum report dated December 5th, 2018, with the caveat that the monies must, 1, first be used to fund a structural engineering study regarding the foundation of the building. 2, second, be used to make said foundation structurally sound. And 3, third, be used to restore and preserve the outer shell of the building and/or protect the building from further damage due to water and dampness in accordance with the recommendations in the report.
I second that.
Discussion.
If I may offer some reasoning. I think David's giving us an estimate on what that structural study is gonna cost, but we flat out don't know what the real number is gonna end up costing them. Gives them wiggle room. Lets us know that there is some money available to deal with the structure of the foundation first. The dampness language, I was particularly concerned with that last evening during the presentation. That could be large dollars, there could be smaller dollars. Perhaps there'd be enough money for them to deal with the gutters or to do a portion of that work in amongst this $130,000 if the basement is structurally sound. So I offer that up as a means of hopefully getting them some money that they can use to kind of not let the building get further damaged by delaying another 18 months to get them some funding at all. And it is certainly not something that I've discussed with Mr. Spitz, so I don't know if they're amenable to that suggestion either, or whether my board members would be either, but I offer that up as a starting point.
Well, it's amendment to the floor, so any other discussion?
That motion does restrict it to just the outside envelope of the building, so that, for instance, I wouldn't think that that would include any design for the elevator or other parts of it. Is that my understanding, do you think?
For me, yes, only because I'm not really sure that there's gonna be enough to actually get to that stage if you're dealing with lead paint scraping and water damage on the outside of the
True,
building.
true. No.
So from my perspective, it was those 3 items first. We could
Right.
then, I'd be happy to entertain a motion to put and then other.
Well, what I was getting at is it because if we limit it to that, then when Dave goes out to get final, the final design, it kind of only limits him to the design of the outside shell. And he couldn't do the whole design, even though we just focus on the outside shell. Am I understanding that?
So I'm not sure that yes, I mean, the way that is drafted, yes. And for me, it's more, I still think before any inside work,
Right.
it can really be designed, you need to know what's gonna, for example, the ductwork on the east side of the building that's if that's
Right.
affecting the paint, there are gonna
Yeah,
be
absolutely.
things that have to
Absolutely.
happen. If it's something that I think is appurtenant to,
Right. My
Water
concern
damage.
was the same that Chris brought up, that, okay, we do the design for it, but then we're gonna come back and do another design for the rest of it, and we have that overlapping money problem. That maybe is it better to do the whole design part first, and then just focus on the repairs of the existing, of the things that need to be done?
Here's where I'm gonna step in.
Okay.
I'm reading Sean's information. One of the pieces of information, he said, should be looked into before painting. If nothing else, these abandoned heat shafts should be sealed, insulated to prevent condensation and damaging to the exterior clapboards. Now, that comes under what Mary has proposed as far as the outer shell being
That's correct.
protected.
I understand.
That to me seems critical, along with that, before any other work is done,
Okay,
along with that structural engineering design
yeah,
or analysis.
right.
But could you interpret that as being interior work, even though it's necessary? I mean, that's one question, is whether the language is just a little bit too restrictive to
so
achieve that goal.
I'd
Well,
be happy.
based on what it just, Sean's comments and how he proposed it,
Yes,
fits that ideally.
so okay.
And that opens up later on for those folks to go ahead and have the architectural design of the basement as far as the needs for the humidity and everything else.
If I may.
That solves that problem.
If I
Go
may,
ahead.
I can offer up a slight amendment that says, including any interior work that may be necessary to restore and preserve the outer shell.
So you're going to offer a friendly
I can
amendment to
offer
your
friendly-
amendments?
I can suggest that somebody wants to second the amendment, I can offer that.
I
or
would
leave it.
move to
Okay.
accept that
So-
amendment.
To say third, to be used to restore and preserve the outer shell of the building and/or protect the building from further damage due to water and dampness, including any appurtenant interior work, comma, in accordance with the recommendations in the report, period.
Yes.
It's moved.
So there's
So, are
as a
you,
point of order,
Mhm.
there's a motion on the floor to amend the
that's
motion.
exactly right, yeah. And there has to be a second to that motion. There is a second. All in favor of the amended motion,
To amend the motion.
to amend the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we're back to the main motion.
Now there's the motion as amended.
Right. So, continued discussion. John, go ahead.
I just have a comment about this, which is that my impression is that fixing the paint on the outside of that building is going to be the largest part of any expenditure, and any expectation that that can be addressed with this chunk of money
It can't be.
is
It can't be.
not realistic, right?
That's exactly
And that
right.
we're all on the same page with that.
Yes. Mary?
If I may, Mr. Chair, there were other things that were talked about. There was pulling water away from the pillars in the
Yeah,
front.
sure.
There was discussion about maybe needing a new copper gutter system. So from my perspective, those would all come under that caveat. Having seen what the library went through,
Yeah, right.
I'd love to think they're gonna get a bid under 130,000, but I just don't see that as happening. But at least if there is some money there, they could perhaps start.
I don't sit on David's board. If I were, I would advocate a multi-stage project, this being the beginning of it. So, anybody else? All right, there's a motion, a main motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, should we do a motion for the land bank debt?
Cal would probably appreciate that.
Yeah, so she has.
Go ahead, Mary, would you make a motion for the land bank then?
So, move to approve $365,749.53.
53 cents.
53
cents.
cents, I'm sorry, from FY18 Community Preservation Undesignated Fund Balance, and in parentheses too, $187,950.47 from estimated FY20 Community Preservation Undesignated Fund Balance to fund the payment of the land bank debt service for FY 2020.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Next, again, I'm going to take these out of order. As Amy's here, we're going to give her a little break, I hope. So we're going to discuss the revetment extension at the end of Red River Beach. Requested amount, $100,000. Questions, board members? Who would like to start?
Oh, I'll start.
Kathy?
So Amy, you sent us some updated information. I had a quick question. John wasn't sure at our last meeting. What was the result of the Conservation Commission's discussion about this?
May I come up?
Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you, good evening. Sorry I couldn't make it last time. You wouldn't have wanted me to be here last time.
We're glad you're feeling better.
Yeah. So the Conservation Commission supported me going forward with another application to them. Because it has been officially submitted. It will be on the February 20th Conservation Commission agenda for a hearing. And so the commission was supportive of just the submittal of another application, but again, because they had yet to review it, they didn't say yes or no to this particular proposal.
Kathy?
Did you guys discuss it?
Yes. Yep,
And-
it was at a meeting under discussion items.
And were there, 2 schools of thought, 3 schools of thought? I
There
mean,
really, again, because it was a discussion item and there were not plans, there were preliminary plans like you had with the with the application, which have since been revised. But there was no, because it wasn't a public hearing, we really can't discuss alternatives at that point in time.
So
They
we're,
agreed that something, just similar to real estate and open space,
yeah,
I think they agreed that it needs to be looked at and something needs to be done. That's as far as I really can honestly say about
okay,
it.
all right. And so what you sent us today, how is that a change from the original proposal?
Sure. Well, I had heard after your meeting last week that there were questions from some of the board about really the exact length of the proposed addition of the structure. So, because before it had been between 50 and 60 feet extra, and so I went out there, and while we still want to keep people use the backside for public access too, my thought was to still be able to maintain some public foot traffic access to the backside. In order to do that, the maximum length would be 55 to be able to have, so the big changes, and I have extra copies of the plans that did go around if anybody wants a hard copy to see. Does anybody want one?
Other than what we got, you
No,
mean?
it was, right, this.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
everybody
we
copied it
have
off.
that.
So, what has changed is this is 55 feet right now. It's clearer, because I had said in the application that there was going to be a repair to the existing end. This is slumping currently. It's, and the other change is that the other plan didn't show a taper down to the marsh and, or to the, what says, to match grade, sorry, not to marsh. A taper and a gradual return is an angle, and going in is critical to make sure that these function well and you don't continue to see large amounts of end scour like we had here. This was a 90-degree return, essentially. It just stopped. When you start to blend it back into the topography, is when you have better success at slowing. There's going to be some erosion whenever you have a hard structure, and that's why we're seeing this. But it'll be lessened. So that's a change. The other change is the previous plan had essentially above the wall itself, it had gravel, and it really shouldn't be gravel. It's fill and then plantings. That could be done in-house, the fill and the plantings. And come out that well. That stayed the same. So those are the main changes since the last time.
All right, so my understanding then is your proposal initially was to extend the jetty 50 to 60 feet.
Yes.
And now you're saying 55 feet is,
It's really the maximum we can do.
okay. So is this going to change the estimate in any
Their
way?
estimate was, let me just check my proposal real quick here. Their estimate was actually really just for 50 feet, and that came in at 70,000, and then the fix for the existing end, I think, came in at the 8,000, so it was 78,000. So it would be a little bit more than they had. My request is for 100,000.
So do you still
because-
think that all the work that needs to be done can be done under 100,000 or within
do.
100,000?
I did ask, and I know there was discussion amongst the board last time for a more accurate quote. It was really, I did not get, was not able to get one because they're going to be bidding on this, and they didn't want to. Essentially, I asked a couple of companies, give out kind of more information before the bids came. So unfortunately, I don't have any better numbers, but I mean, what I can do is, if people are interested, is kind of break out the different components of the project, not in terms of pricing, but what kind of different components there are to the project. Their price included materials as well as labor at prevailing wage.
Just one last question. So I forget without reading through this again. if, if we vote to approve the funds,
Mhm.
you were going to apply to the state,
Yes.
and what's the time frame of that?
Sure. So application with conservation and the state are simultaneous. We will receive a DEP number, and usually, we have to, before, it takes about 30 days to get a DEP number. So we will send, our information actually was, because we filed with Conservation Commission this week, our information electronically went to the state, it's been filed. So within 30 days, we'll have a number, hopefully, before 30 days, because we have our first hearing, at least with Conservation Commission on the 20th. I'm guessing it's not gonna be a one meeting with Conservation, and that's totally fine. But I would hope that, well prior to town, say 2 meetings go through. If it's successful, it goes out to bid, and we definitely have the bids and a selection before town meeting with a,
So will you know, whether the state's going to give you approval before town meeting?
what we won't know is the potential, so with the revision of the plan, anything below mean high water has to have a Chapter 91 license. That's a 3 to 6 month process. Our existing mean high water is really right where this, it's really close. So I'm not even gonna put it up to chance to whether or not they're gonna flag it. We're just gonna file
File.
with Chapter 91. So we would not have that prior to town meeting.
Right.
But
So that means that the project probably wouldn't get if everything went through,
yeah,
till fall of,
Mhm.
or spring?
winter.
Winter, okay.
It's actually ideal to have, revetment work is ideally done in the winter time. The sediment's pretty compact. There's not as many people on the beaches. So mostly it's done, and also because of endangered species things, we wouldn't do this in the summer. You want to do it really between November. Most towns actually have a stipulation for revetment work. We don't have that many more to go in, so most towns say between like November 1st and March 15th is when a lot of the rock work has to get done in town.
And is there a chance that if we have a very severe season now, that there would be that much more erosion, that it would change the nature of what's gonna need to be done?
I don't envision, other than potentially having to add more fill to the back to achieve the appropriate slope, which we have that fill available. I don't think it's going to drastically change the scope or cost of the work. As it is right now, when we need to, we do add sand, which is causing the detriment to, and silting in the marsh and the channel there. So, I don't, barring the 100-year storm, which is now the 25-year storm, 5-year storm.
Right.
I'm just saying, I can't guarantee
Okay.
it, but I don't foresee the cost going
Okay.
a lot higher.
Well, now that
Yeah.
you've covered everybody's questions.
Now we've covered all the
Moving
scientific
on.
stuff.
Mary,
I really don't have any questions. Kelly hit all the points.
Right,
Bob,
same.
Okay.
John,
So we did talk about this in when, September or October?
It was just prior to submission to CPC.
So, and one of the things that was discussed among commission members was what happens if this work is not done? And there was some somewhat facetious discussion here last week about that,
Okay.
but it's a serious question.
Right.
And it's probably worthwhile, whatever comments you might be able to make about what the risks are here, I guess. It's a question of risks. And what you said is the town continues to fill sand there, and there's probably a limit to that, I assume. And what happens if that limit is reached, or what happens if the town, for whatever unforeseeable reasons, the town has to stop adding sand, but this
Correct.
work is not done?
And that is a legitimate concern that the town, by DEP, or by potentially the commission, says where there's an environmental detriment by adding this unnatural amount of sand. I mean, banks of road, they're supposed to. We've been filling it at a very unnatural rate. So that will have to stop fairly soon, one way or another. If we don't do something, and this is, again, I'm kind of charged with looking at both the environmental aspect and also being a employee of the town and been charged with kind of coming up with a solution where we can marry environmental with also the fact that this is our most popular public beach in Harwich with 190 spaces and generates a ton of revenue. What will happen, so essentially this little ridge right here has been grown because on top of the plan, we've added that. When I first got here 7 years ago, it was 3 feet, the scarp from the edge. If you stop adding sand, you will start losing this parking area. It'll just erode in. The parking lot will cave in. And the river is trying to move. What I should have mentioned as well, so when I had said that banks should naturally erode, we have an erosion rate for various sections of town. Like every 50 feet, there's actually an erosion rate calculated. So what a proposal is too is not to stop putting sand there, but after we put the rocks in on a yearly basis, put sand on top of the rocks at the rate that it should naturally be eroding. So you still get the necessary dressing of sand like you need, but you do not get 10 times that. If you do nothing, you will lose that turnaround, most likely. And it'll come around the backside of this revetment side and compromise that as well. Part of the application to the Conservation Commission is looking at different alternatives, such as fiber rolls, sandbags, the do-nothing alternative, things like that.
So you're characterizing a certain amount of erosion that will, in all likelihood, happen if nothing is done. What's the likelihood that if left completely alone, the river would change course and end up west of the jetty instead of east of it?
I can't say because.
Is it even a possibility?
Yes. It is a possibility over a pretty long period of time, because you have a fairly wide swath of beach to water here. But yes, it is a potential possibility in the long run.
Randy?
I have no questions.
Chris?
Nope.
You know, it's interesting how you pointed out that the sand on top of the rocks, after you put the rocks in, cover it with sand, because some of us understand the analysis of take a little bit from nature, but give a little bit back to nature. And that works exactly.
Yeah. It's not perfect. It's certainly, I worked in Eastham where we had, everything was massive revetments because we have really tall 50-foot high banks. And it's not perfect to add sand, but you definitely, instead of seeing, if you don't add sand at all, if you're on a beach, you'll see the beach drop over time. Beach levels drop. You don't have beach at high tide anymore. We see that a lot. But if you keep adding some sand, it helps to keep that elevation stagnant.
Okay. Is there?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay. Catherine?
I'd like to make a motion to support the Red River Beach Shoreline Stabilization Project, with funding source, $50,000 coming from the Open Space FY18 fund and $50,000 coming from the undesignated FY20 fund, for a total of $100,000.
There's a motion on the floor. Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night. And I will keep you updated with the progress through conservation and DEP.
Okay. Next, Cape Housing Institute. The request is $7,500. Any more discussion on this? Is there a motion?
Mary?
Sorry. Yes, sorry. Move to approve $7,500 from FY18 Community Preservation Community Housing account for the Community Development Partnership to fund the FY 2020 Cape Housing Institute in accordance with CDP's application for community preservation funds.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
Second.
Hearing none. All those in favor? Okay. Next, number 3,
The Housing Trust.
Housing Trust, Affordable Housing Trust, part-time housing coordinator. Amount request $340,000. Is there a motion?
No discussion? So,
We've got to put the motion on the floor first.
I move to approve, I have the motion in 2 sections, so is it the pleasure to do the large portion first or the smaller portion first?
Well, it would all be contained within,
So, I first have a motion to approve, first, $304,384.47 from FY18 Community Preservation Community Housing account, and $5,615.53 from estimated FY20 Community Preservation Community Housing account for the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust to fund the trust's activities for the development of affordable housing within the town of Harwich in accordance with the trust application for community preservation funds. And I further move to approve $30,000 from estimated FY20 Community Preservation Community Housing account for the trust to fund a housing coordinator or the hiring of a consultant to perform the activities of a housing coordinator for the town of Harwich in accordance with the trust application for community preservation funds,
For a total of,
for a total of $340,000 total.
do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. With the caveat that the finance director makes sure that the numbers are correct. Okay, next, lifeguard stands project, amount requested, $37,950. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve $37,950 from the estimated FY20 Community Preservation Undesignated Fund Balance to the Harwich Recreation Department / the Harwich Recreation and Youth Commission for the construction and installation of 11 new lifeguard stands at Harwich beaches as detailed in accordance with the Harwich Recreation Department and Harwich Recreation and Youth Commission application.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's a motion. R5, Sandy Pond Restroom Facility, amount requested $125,000. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to support the Sand Pond Restroom Project submitted by the Harwich Recreation and Youth Departments Commission, whatever, in the amount of $125,000 to be taken from estimated FY20 funds, undesignated.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, I know. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's done.
Hmm?
So that's Sandy Pond. So, okay, the next one is White House Improvement Project, requested amount $55,000. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to support the White House Field improvement projects including the lighting, the scoreboard lighting, and installation of safety netting and poles for spectator safety, submitted by the Harwich Recreation Department and Commission in the amount of $55,000, to be taken from FY20 undesignated, estimated FY20 undesignated funds.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Number 7, bike crossing lights at Depot Street in North Harwich. Amount requested, $27,000. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to support the Depot Street bike crossing lights in the amount requested of $27,000 to come from FY20 estimated funds undesignated.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, so we have completed our task.
Was that one unanimous, actually?
Opposed.
Yeah. Any other discussion about the warrant articles from the board? None. Okay, our next meeting is on February 14th, 2019. And there's another one scheduled for March 14th, 2019. Move for to adjourn. We're done.
We're gonna meet on Valentine's Day, I'm just gonna point it out for you.
Any questions?
I want to make a motion to thank Kathy and Mary for doing such a fine job making motions.
I'll second that.
It makes the chair's job a lot easier.
Motion to have Mary give me copies of all the motions.
I will.
We'll get you those copies.
Thank you. I can email them to you tomorrow, Kathy. Lee, I'll make the changes that I hand out in.
John.
Okay?
So these motions are essentially the text of the warrant articles? Is that the way?
Well,
this
what
is gonna
happens
work?
is everything gets combined, it goes to the town, goes to legal, they go through them, and then they get into they go to the warrant.
So legal actually creates the final text, is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I would.
Kathy did
No,
last year.
Kathy.
I did it last year. I'm not doing it
There's
again.
certain things they will amend, but that's beyond our,
Scope.
yeah, it's beyond our expertise. So, the only thing I would request is, you get all the motions together, would you send copies to the finance director so she can review them? Okay, thank you.
Hey, Dave.
Go ahead, Chris.
You just mentioned that our website, our
On the
webs-
town website, your meetings are listed, the second or whatever Thursday they are of the month. It lists that they start at 7 PM. So
Oh.
if you would like, I can have Jamie change that.
Would you
because
please?
It's not correct.
Okay, didn't know that.
We
Yeah.
changed
Hopefully they're
last
probably
year.
gonna show up in 5 minutes.
That's why
Changed
it's only
last year
here.
temporarily, we didn't make that official
Right,
change, I
yeah,
guess,
we
yeah, okay.
Good catch, thank you.
We still
Um,
post them correctly, so.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
they're
so.
posted right.
One thing under old business, the CPC plan.
Oh, did you really?
I don't think that's gonna happen.
I think we adjourned, didn't we?
No, not yet,
Oh,
we
we
didn't
didn't?
vote. We didn't vote.
Sorry, guys.
I just wanna touch base on this because I know I'm gonna hear there's gonna be a lot of repercussion about it. Without having a planning board member here to offer some insight into what their thinking is and how their approach is, putting some information for us,
Thanks,
I know. I really wanted to do that, but again, for those who have designed these plans before, I have no expertise in this. And as I understand it, it has to start from the top down. So I'm gonna go based on that information until we hear otherwise. John?
This puzzles me, apparently it puzzles you too. But the CPA, right, specifies that it's the responsibility of the Community Preservation Committee not just to solicit input from the town, but to, I forget what the exact words are, I forget whether it says plan exactly, but to anticipate and formulate the needs of the town and synthesize that into some kind of a plan. And I assume this is what you're referring to.
Yes.
When you're talking about the community preservation plan, but I don't quite understand why there's any reason we have to wait for some other higher power to tell us what we're supposed to be doing. That part I don't get.
Mary?
So we don't. The point is that we have multiple components. There is already a housing production plan in place. There is certainly a conservation open space plan in place that the town has voted on within the last probably
2 years.
year and a half.
Yeah.
Those are two components that would go into a comprehensive plan that, yes, the town will need to update, which is a large project. The other piece that we have in CPC is historic preservation. We have briefly touched on the possibility that we need to see what's in place currently in historic, and certainly historic could move forward and do a historic preservation plan, but that does not preclude this board from doing a plan for the use of community preservation funds. That would then be a component of a larger comprehensive plan when the planning board gets the funding and can actually put the 2 years of work into it with a consultant to get an overall comprehensive plan. A Community Preservation Act plan would be a component part of it. But I would suggest that the town does have two plans that directly relate to.
And as I
Our
understand it,
funds.
both those plans are in competition with each other, according to some board members' points of view.
Well, that may be true, but this board has floors for spending in both areas, so we have spending for open space, and we have required spending for open space, and we have minimum required spending for affordable housing, so even if they are in competition with one another, there are funds available for both, and historic, before even touching your undesignated fund balance, so we certainly, can we do it? Yes.
Kathy?
Well, I agree with Mary that we have a lot of the components in place to do this. One of the components that we don't have in place is the public outreach component,
Agreed.
okay? Which, in some towns, a consultant is hired to sort of drive that component in terms of focus groups, surveys, a real assessment of the public's needs and wants. And that's something that we're missing, and I don't know where we would necessarily go to do that. I think we could put, obviously we could put a couple of plans, the various plans together in one, place, and we could also sort of put together guidelines that we use in the application process, running the meetings, et cetera, et cetera. But the biggest component, I think, is the assessment of the needs, and I'm not really sure how we would get that.
If I may, as a follow-up, I don't disagree with you on that at all. Obviously, our public outreach has been, even though we made Lions efforts last year to attempt to get more people here, it didn't happen. But we certainly could start by having, even if we used the goals and objectives in the open space plan and the goals and objectives in the affordable housing plan as priorities for us in reviewing applications that come before us, certainly we could start in that sense and try and get into compliance with having a plan in place under the CPA Act.
I have more questions, which one is, Mary, you just referred to um, substantial attempts last year to involve the public.
We have a
I was
public
not
meeting.
in the loop, so I don't know what it was you did.
We have a public meeting every year.
Right, and that happened this year in September, right?
Right.
Correct.
But were there other things that happened?
There were efforts made to get it publicized further through the Chamber of Commerce and on Channel 18, and to get other additional attendance here. And we had, what, one person show up, two people show up. So,
One way to get public involvement is to, and I'm not a publicist or anything like that. I have simple-minded engineer's ideas about things, but
So you're volunteering.
ah,
I was gonna,
well, maybe I am, but I don't know what I'm volunteering for.
Right.
I'm volunteering to state more opinions, which I don't know if they're helpful at all.
well,
We
we're not
have
paying,
enough
so
people that do that.
There's no cost to that, so, go ahead, Joe, I'm sorry.
No problem. One way to solicit involvement is just to make statements about what you're going to do and what you perceive the needs to be in order to get some reaction. If you make the statement sufficiently controversial, you'll get a reaction. I'm not advocating taking controversial positions for the sake of taking controversial positions, but having a public meeting where you invite people to come and give proposals is kind of a reactionary way to go about things. Another way to do it is publish in some way, have a discussion in the committee, and I don't know how the committee would make such a determination, and I'd be curious to see the conversation, but one way to get some reaction is just to publish, this is what we see the needs as. We see, one could project the revenues into CPC funds over the next 5 years and make some statements about how one might allocate those based on perceived needs. That is, lacking any initial public input, just make a statement about what the committee thinks and put it out there for reaction. And I'm imagining you might get more of a reaction to that than just an open-ended solicitation for proposals. Because I don't know that people, there's certain people clearly who know there's money there and they come every year looking for money. But making a statement about money being available and this is how we think it should be allocated might open up some other avenues and some other thoughts about how it should be spent. You're laughing, so
Well,
I want to know why you're laughing. 'Cause
I'm laughing because I had asked this committee to think about putting forward and pursuing some type of information that we could gather to move the plan forward. And do you remember, you may have not been here for that response.
I
Who's not?
no.
I don't believe you were.
we all took, if I recall, we all took a town and we all got,
Right.
We all did what?
each
Go
of
ahead.
us last year took an individual town and
Oh,
tried to find out what they had for their plan, and we came back and reported back to the committee. And as I recall, there was one community that we thought was more focused than the others.
True.
And then it's pretty much where we left it, because we kind of vacated for the summer.
Well, I pushed for a vote for you guys to push this forward. You chose not to. So I'm asking again, what direction do you think we should proceed? It's up to the committee to decide, not for me to decide. Kathy,
Well, I just wanted to
see, I'm putting it
address,
back on you.
I just wanted to address what John said, in that, our public hearing, okay, is not supposed to be for people to come to us, with their proposals, okay? And we
Right.
clearly have stated that many times, but that's what people still come for. So they don't come to say, well, I think the town needs to put more, monies towards historic preservation. They don't come and tell us that. You know, like, as a need. So we tend to be reactionary rather than proactive.
So,
But we also, as a follow-up, are required under the Community Preservation Act to have a public hearing for that purpose every year, which we do, and we are required to publicize it in, you know, however the statute requires, which we do, and tried additional outreach last year, and it still didn't.
And I actually just got something from the coalition a month ago about how to better advocate for the public hearings. So, and we can share that at another meeting.
Did you receive this?
oh, yeah, I have that. I do have that.
This is pretty descriptive about what the community CPC is all about. Now, the town administrator made a commitment for this town meeting, this coming town meeting, to provide some kind of a document handed out there at town meeting. This would be perfect. It's an absolute explanation of everything that the coalition does and what we do.
So, what's to stop the committee from collectively putting together an opinion about what the needs of the town are and how the resources from the taxpayers' money that flow into this committee, how those, in some broad sense, should be spent for the town?
Well, the broad sense, if I might,
Go ahead, Ken.
the broad sense is what our mission is from, you know, when the establishment of the Community Preservation Act. But when it comes to specifics in a community, I'm not really sure that a committee of 7 people should be making that decision.
It seems like, sorry,
Chris, go ahead.
it seems like the people who really should know what the needs of their constituents are the people who come with applications each year. They should be applying for funding of items that their constituents are asking for. So recreation and historic preservation and whoever, you know, they should be the ones who have their finger on the pulse of their constituents, however narrow or broad their constituents are. My sense is, and I think I've said this before, a lot of people in town, most people in town don't really understand CPA. If they do, they don't really care about it that much. And the
Till they get their tax bill.
applicants for funding represent a fairly narrow band of what goes on in the town, because it is, by very definition, community preservation. So, in terms of understanding what the needs of the town are, for me, for example, to have a grip on that, I mean, I'd have to probably work full-time for a year to understand what the town's, you know, needs are. I think if somebody comes to the table with an application for funding, it's their responsibility to do that, conscientiously understanding what their constituents are asking for.
Mary?
Just quickly, I think, yes, the people that are coming forward with applications, yes, they do have constituents, but there are others out there. It's, for example, it could be a school teacher or a firefighter or a policeman that lives in town and says, you know, I think we need more rental housing because I can't afford to buy a 3-bedroom home in Harwich and keep my family here and work here. So I really need to see rental housing, and maybe that's townhouses, or maybe that's whatever that's affordable. I think those are also the kind of information that we're trying to glean from kind of John Q. Public too. It's not just the you know, the kind of traditional applicants, the Conservation Trust or the.
Well, to David's point a moment ago, maybe as a start, the people of the town, at least those who come to town meeting, need a primer. I wouldn't give them any documents issued by coalition, though,
Yeah.
because they're much too thick for the
Yeah.
average person. They wouldn't even read them.
Right.
I mean, a one-page summary of what CPA is all about, give it out at town meeting, and invite people to come to the next public forum several months after that and voice their needs. And
That's an
Kathy,
interesting-
Kathy, I'd be really interested in seeing whatever you got from the coalition talking about ways to
Yeah.
advocate.
Yeah, and I can share
And for
that.
that matter, if we have peer groups across the Cape who have had a lot of success getting people to, publicly, across a wide swath of people in the town, publicly talk about what their needs are, we should talk to them and find out how they've been successful. I'll bet you, though, that their results are very similar to ours in terms of outpouring for, funding.
I don't understand. So you're gonna have to
You don't understand
explain,
anything I said.
explain it a little better to me. 3% of the levy goes into a fund, the taxpayers' money goes into a fund
Right.
that is gonna fund something, some unit, or whatever that unit represents. A 5-page document explains what that funding mechanism is
Right.
and what that unit's gonna do.
Right.
And you wouldn't take the time to read?
I'm with Chris on
David,
that.
I'm sorry, I just
I
don't.
come from a different world, apparently.
Yeah,
I guess
I-
I'm a dinosaur.
By the way, I'm not saying I wouldn't, but
Right.
knowing what I know of the average person and what they're doing, what day-to-day is important to them, I don't think they would. We can take a shot at it, but I'd prefer to distill it into something simpler and shorter
And I don't disagree
and
with that,
stop there.
Well, you can do both.
Well,
Kathy.
Well, already had this conversation, all right? So we had this conversation, we've had it in many shapes and forms, but we had it most recently after our last public hearing, okay? We had a conversation about what else could we do. And the couple things that came up was to move the public hearing to closer to the town meeting. So very soon after town meeting, having the public hearing. And that would also be after we distributed some kind of informational brochure or something, a very simple, maybe two-sided, trifold kind of, piece of paper that outlined what we did, and again, what we have done, what we're looking for, and that we're looking for people to come forward and give their ideas and opinions, and see what happens,
Yeah. And offer some examples of what has been
Yeah, of course,
funded.
of course.
Because the average person in town has no clue.
Right.
They don't,
Well, there's an article every year in the newspaper also, though, that kind of breaks down everything like that we've funded, like that we'll request funding for this year, once it goes to the Board of Selectmen, and it really explains it well in the paper, but not everybody reads it,
right. Everybody gets it, gets the paper.
Well, true.
By the
One
way,
thing that-
I'd be happy to take a shot. I was an English major in college. I'd be happy to take
Right.
a shot at distilling the document you're waving at me into something simpler for town meeting. If I'm still on the committee.
Mary.
The only other suggestion I was gonna make, and it was something that if I recall, I looked at Dennis, and Dennis seems to have on their website their funded projects year by year with updates, what was spent, what was funded, what
Mhm.
became of it. It's a longer term project that would take some greater effort,
Yeah.
but it is certainly one other way to have out there
Right.
that people can.
Right. We talked about taking the information that's on the coalition's database, okay, which lists all of our projects that we've funded since 2005, 2006, and the amounts and what they went for. Okay, but to get it into a format for the website, it's a big project. There's 100 and something projects that have been funded. Not to say that it can't be done, but, people need to access the website. Okay? I think another thing to think about too is that the town has been forecasting on their capital plan that certain projects they're going to put in, under using Community Preservation Act funds. And so in a way, they are assessing the needs and putting that forward. Is that not correct?
I think you're 100% correct.
Okay, so
And
someplace.
that's a whole other discussion.
I'm not intending to open that up tonight.
Okay, do I hear a subcommittee?
Can I ask a question?
No, there's a question with a question.
What are the negative, back to your original question, which was, do we do this plan or not? Not a plan of how to get people to participate more, but the plan. It's the master plan for CPC, which apparently some towns have done and some other committees within Harwich have done as well. But you mentioned negative repercussions. What are the expected negative repercussions if the plan is not done? And where do they come from?
I can't answer that question.
Okay.
Well, the biggest is in violation of the CPA
I
Act.
didn't want to answer that question.
Well, I'm just saying, but there are
It's
towns.
the obvious.
We,
Who
we,
enforces
we
that?
investigated some of the towns, like she said, we all reported on some of the towns. A lot of the towns, some of the towns don't even have, they don't have a plan, and they're proud of it. I mean, seriously. Even though they
It-
all know that they're all
It is
under the
required
same
under
thing.
the act, but there's never been any push for all of CPA to have a
So-
plan in place.
So if it was, at least based on my.
Then you have to get into what's a comprehensive plan?
Yeah.
What's a strategic plan?
So based, at
Comprehensive
least,
plan,
to
this has nothing to do with
nauseam.
the comprehensive plan, this
At
might be a piece of a comprehensive plan, that's a
so
whole other.
at least based on my life experience, if there's a provision that is mandated and that mandate is gonna be enforced, there are guidelines for it. There's a format for it. And it doesn't sound like we have anything like that. It's just sort of a general statement made in support of the CPA that says you ought to have a plan. And the plan police will come and check on you sometime.
I don't think it says ought to have a plan.
No.
I think it says you must have a plan.
You must have a plan. That's the same thing I read.
So then, one suggestion could be to begin formulating that plan with trying to fulfill this provision to go out and get more feedback from the people of the town, and so to publicize a little more. So it goes back to what we would have been discussing about a document to be handed out at town meeting to try to get more people to understand what's going on and how they can participate more. Because I'm not sure how we would write what effectively is a strategic or a marketing plan without really understanding more about the needs of the town. I wouldn't really know where to start, I don't think, on constructing the plan. I'm definitely not gonna volunteer for that.
If we have someone who's willing to work on a brochure, and I would be glad to help you, Chris,
There's the subcommittee.
with all the information that I have, okay? Would we be able to come before this committee to maybe ask for some administrative funding to, produce, this
Right.
brochure?
That's what it's there for. That's
Okay.
what the admin
Full-time
does.
secretary.
I'm just saying, instead of running off like a flyer off of my computer,
No,
we
I
might
agree.
be able to do something if we, got it,
Would any of the other board members like to be part of the subcommittee? I
Don't
have
all
no other
jump
op-
at
well,
once.
Then there's a subcommittee or two.
And the subcommittee, just to be clear, is responsible initially for drawing up some kind of a document that can be distributed to
Town meeting.
people at town meeting.
And it has to,
Honestly, I don't know how you're gonna condense something like this.
we're not gonna use that.
You're gonna use something,
That's to see if a project is allowable. We're trying to assess, we're trying to
Right,
get
but it-
people to understand that they can tell us what their needs are, what they perceive as the needs in the community, what they'd like to see.
but
David, I
each
think that's
page,
part of it.
historic preservation, it tells you
I know, this comes after, though. I mean, I think we can
I don't see it that way. I see
produce-
this as being first.
Listen, Kathy, if
Let
we
your
run out of
subcommittee
time.
But you know
do
something?
If we run out of time, we can always come back and say, you know what, we decided to use the.
Right. Right.
No, my apologies. You're right. Go ahead. Come up with some ideas.
That's all. We'll come up with some
Admin
ideas
funds are
and,
available for whatever you have to
but I will
purchase or
say,
to produce.
if we were gonna, this is just an aside, if we were to give something out hand out something at town meeting, it has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen prior to that.
And it has
So-
to go through legal too.
Right, so the timing is such that, we're gonna need to do something within the next 2 months,
Yeah,
is
fine.
what I would say. I'm just, throwing that out there.
Are you okay with
Meeting's
that?
May 6th.
I'm okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that does not resolve the plan question, but it's a step in a particular direction.
We're taking a
Perhaps-
track.
I think it
Perhaps
begins
it's
to
a
resolve.
step so that then we can address the plan after we have
Next public meeting,
the next public meeting.
Right.
okay?
Wow.
Sounds like
a winner.
progress.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we're looking for. All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Anything else?
So Kathy will separately, I guess,
Yeah.
reach out to each other.
Sure.
Motion to adjourn?
like in
Motion
case
for
you find-
adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned. Carol, thank you for coming.
Get to go to book club.